In some old Jewish homes across Europe, the most valuable thing was never locked inside a safe. It was not gold, not silver, not inherited jewelry passed down through generations. What they kept was a single old book, its cover worn, its pages yellowed by time. It was not placed on an altar, and it was rarely opened. It simply stayed there, quietly, as if its presence alone was enough to protect the house. An elderly man once said, almost in a whisper, that his mother warned him, no matter how poor they became, never let that book leave the home, because when night falls, when war or loss arrives without warning, people do not search for power. They search for safety, and then the name appears, not loudly, but with a strange weight that lingers in the mind. Book of Ezra. A book spoken of as a protective charm. A final thread connecting human life to an unseen order of the universe. They did not keep gold. They kept a book. And I began to wonder. And maybe you are wondering too. Where did you first hear that name? From a family story passed down in silence? From a late-night conversation? Or from a fleeting moment while scrolling through mysteries you never planned to stop for? If this story speaks to you, if your curiosity feels familiar, stay with me. Subscribe, not to chase forbidden secrets, but to understand why, when the world becomes fragile, human beings always reach for something to hold on to. There is a question that always returns whenever human beings face darkness. 2. Why is it that in moments of fear, loss, and uncertainty, we do not reach for what feels safe and familiar, but instead feel drawn toward forbidden knowledge, toward things no one dares to say out loud? The answer is not evil, and it is not hunger for power. It is helplessness, deeply human and quietly painful. When illness arrives before medicine can save us, when war destroys every familiar structure, when someone we love disappears without explanation, people need more than hope. They need a reason to believe the world still has order, that their suffering is not random. Forbidden knowledge often promises something very simple. If you understand enough, if you know what others do not, you will not be completely powerless. Not because people are bad, but because people are afraid. And fear. Knowledge, even dangerous or uncertain knowledge, gives the feeling of holding on to something, instead of letting go entirely in the face of fate. To understand Ezra, we must place it where it truly belongs, not in the world of fiction or embellished legend, but in the very real history of medieval humanity. Book of Ezra is a Jewish mystical text, rooted in the tradition of Kabbalah, where people sought to understand the relationship between God, angels, and the hidden order governing the universe. It was not written for entertainment, and it was never meant to tell a dramatic story. It was compiled as a record, gathering layers of older sacred, from divine names and Hebrew letters, to the structure of the heavens themselves. For medieval readers, this was not magic. It was a sincere, often desperate attempt to explain the world they lived in. Before modern science, before psychology or cosmology had clear language, they relied on symbols and sacred order to create meaning. And this must be said clearly. This is not a novel. This is a map of belief. A map drawn by people trying to understand why life felt so fragile, and whether beneath the chaos, some greater order still remained. In the tradition of Ezra, the story does not begin with power, but with failure. Adam is cast out of Eden, no longer surrounded by paradise, no longer protected by the direct presence of God, left as a fragile human standing before an unfamiliar world. It is a deeply human moment. When all protection disappears. When there is nowhere left to return to. And it is precisely in that moment Raziel appears, not as a savior, but as a bearer of knowledge. Not knowledge to dominate, but knowledge to survive spiritually. This story does not say that humanity deserved divine secrets. It says that when human beings are separated from heaven, the only thing that keeps them from collapsing entirely is understanding. When falling from paradise, humanity seeks knowledge, not to restore what was lost, but to continue living in a world that no longer offers protection. This is the deepest symbol of Raziel. Knowledge is not a reward. It is a burden, a gift that helps people stand upright, while reminding them that from this moment on, fear, choice, and responsibility on their own. Opening Raziel does not feel like reading a book. It feels like stepping into a maze. The Hebrew letters appear dense and deliberate, not meant only to be read, but to be felt. Each character is treated as a fragment of creation itself, each name carrying its own vibration. The angels do not appear as gentle figures, but as forces of order, stand-in.